Playing Total War Warhammer does not need to be expensive, and you can try it out for as little as 20 American dollars. The thing is, not everyone ends up using all the content, and you could end up potentially buying some extra DLC that you never need to use. However, there is definitely some DLC that you should use depending on your race or factions of choice. Now, to answer the first question, is Total War Warhammer worth getting? Is it good? Yes. But is it expensive? Hell yes. No one really gets everything straight away. People usually dabble through, work through a faction, get everything for that said faction and race, and then maybe move on, or they wait for the new content to come out and experience that as it comes. Is it good? Let's just try to objectively look at the numbers. If you're a Total War fan who's looking to return, now is a really good time. The current state of Total Warhammer 2 with the Mortal Empires campaign, I'm a long-time Total War fan. I love Roman history, I love medieval history, but this is the best Total War has ever been, and I will stand by that. This game has so much replay value. Even if you only play the same race, your campaigns are different every single time. You can't plan runs. On my channel, I plan out runs, and none of them go exactly according to plan because there's that much replayability, and that's playing as the same faction. Each race has between 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, even 7 sub-factions and lords, and you can confederate those into your faction. And here we have the concurrent Steam players over the past 6 months. Keep in mind that some of these older titles, maybe they're playing on disc and not on Steam, but the numbers speak for themselves. If you take Total War 3 Kingdoms out of the equation here, Total Warhammer 2 has more concurrent players than all of them put together. And I don't know why anyone's playing Warhammer 1, because you should be experiencing that through Warhammer 2 in the Mortal Empires campaign. Now, the reason why I say no one's playing Total Warhammer 1 anymore is because all of these races are incorporated into the Mortal Empires campaign, which dials both the Game 1 and Game 2 experiences up to 11 by fusing the two maps together. Now, should you buy everything on this list, even on special? No, not off the bat. Now, try Game 2. Game 2 does not have Mortal Empires, it has instead the Vortex campaign. So when you boot up the game, you can play the Vortex campaign, and in here you can choose one of the 4 key races: High Elves, Lizardmen, Dark Elves, or the Skaven. Now, these lords are very different in terms of difficulty, so please hear me here. Choose the easiest to flesh out your experience. Tyrion, if you're not sure, he should be your first stop. Very easy campaign for the High Elves. Gorok is a free lord on the store for Lizardmen, another great and very complete one if you like bigger units. Malekith, if being good is boring, he is by far the easiest and most accessible Dark Elf lord. And out of these, Skaven have a lot of DLC that you have to pay for, but a inexpensive lord by being free in the base game is Lord Skrolk, and he should be recommended as your first game. Do not start on Legendary, start on normal or even easy, and make sure that your battle difficulty is no higher than normal, even if you want to choose harder on the campaign map. Just keep it nice and simple, and just experience the game, okay? If you do end up liking it, then you can get Warhammer 1. The combination between the two of these will unlock Mortal Empires, and this is the source. These are if you get all the DLC, this is everything available to you, and each of these campaigns has anywhere between, I'd say, 8 to 20 or up to, say, even 40 or 60 hours between them, depending how far you get in them. So, going back to the buyer's guide here, you've purchased Warhammer 2. It comes with the 4 key races. Make sure you get yourself a Total War Access account. Comes with a ton of goodies, including lots of lords, units. Just get it, it's free and it's great. So, you've done that, you enjoyed yourself. You now purchase Warhammer 1, which unlocks the Mortal Empires campaign, and this is, I'd say, probably 90% of people that are hardcore fans of this, they spend probably all of their time in this campaign. I think it's a better map, and by far a more rich experience. This will unlock the Empire of Men, Vampire Counts, Dwarves, Greenskins, and a completely free faction, if you have Mortal Empires, is Bretonnia, which is medieval Spain and France, essentially. So those are the 2 biggest purchases, but they give you 9 out of the 15 playable races. So what are the other playable races? Well, technically you don't even need to get Warhammer 1 to be able to try the Tomb Kings or the Vampire Coast on the Vortex map. Now, which DLC is worth it? Some say some DLC is good and others is bad. I'm going to take a different approach here and tell you what is useful for the race you want to play as, because most of you will probably have a race that you like or don't like. maybe in your tinkering around with Warhammer 2, you decided Dark Elves are boring. Dark Elves are a bit too maybe samey, but maybe you love the Skaven, right? And you maybe think Lizardmen, awesome, lots of big dinos, good stuff. So here is where you decide your first piece of DLC. The stuff in green is content that is quite pivotal to a complete experience. I'll go through the races one at a time. Elves are a very vanilla faction, my faction of choice. And they get the Sisters of Avalon, their best unit, as well as a Lord that's very easy to confederate. The Dark Elves, quite similarly, also get a Lord that's easy to confederate from this single piece of content. Keep in mind, this is all usable on the Vortex campaign, so you might even just want to try these guys out on the Vortex campaign if you only ever want to do one campaign. But if you want to do multiple, I would definitely recommend getting Mortal Empires. Now, there's additional content here. It doesn't provide you with as many units, but it does give you an extra legendary lord as well as more units. So if you're a hardcore fan of the race, like I'm a hardcore High Elves fan, I would recommend to myself, get both of these. You're going to play more than one High Elf campaign, and this will really give you the full experience. Shadow and the Blade gets you Malice Darkblade, another great campaign, but if you only really intend on doing one Dark Elf campaign, you can get away without it. So Skaven and Lizardmen, Prophet and the Warlock, especially for Skaven, their best campaign is linked to this piece of DLC. Ikit Claw is head and shoulders the favourite for this faction, and I do recommend it. Of the Game 2 races, Skaven are by far the most popular, and all of these, if you're a Skaven fan, you won't be disappointed. But if you just want to dabble and play through a campaign, this is the only one I would say you need. And you can pass a campaign without these green DLC items, but I do recommend it. If the green is for the full experience and the yellows are for the complete experience. The Lizardmen are unique. They have more free lords than anyone else, so make sure you get that Total War access. Silence and the Fury gives them an extra lord that's a bit far away, but decent. And Hunter and the Beast gives them Nakai the Wanderer, and he's very divisive, very difficult. He'll die before any other lord can confederate him. Don't buy this unless you're a hardcore Lizard fan, alright? The Tomb Kings, they're a DLC race, so they're a one-stop shop. You get that, you get the whole package. Same as the Vampire Coast. And now the Game 1 factions, starting off with the Empire, the most popular faction in the entire game. They're great fun. I would definitely recommend them as a first campaign if you've decided to dabble, and especially if you're returning to Total War, give them a whirl, you'll have a blast. Grim and the Grave gives you their Regiments of Renown, so all the green ones here give you what's called Regiments of Renown. They're special elite units you can hire in a pinch. They give you a lot of tactical flexibility, and as always, each piece of DLC gives you an extra lord and some extra units to follow, so this is an absolute must for the Empire. They get Marcus Wolfheart from the Hunter and the Beast DLC. Now, if you only want to play one Empire campaign, or maybe two, you can get away without having this. If you are an Empire fan though, absolutely get it. It comes with some really cool units, but nothing as vital as like the Priest that comes from this. Vampire Counts, they've only got one piece of DLC and you need it. If you're a Vampire Counts fan, you do need that. You could probably get away with a campaign without this, but I would recommend this for the Empire alone. So the combination between these two, mean Grim and the Grave, I would say is worth getting if you plan on playing Empire. The Dwarves, they get from the King and the Warlock, Belagar Ironhammer, a pretty cool lord actually. He comes with some cool stuff, some new units, including the Runesmith, so if you're a Dwarf fan, absolutely, you need that. They've also got some cool free content, including the White Dwarf himself and Thorak. Likewise, greenskins really require the King and the Warlord to get those Regiments of Renown, and they get some good free lords, and Grom the Paunch comes from the Warden and the Paunch DLC. This is a bit of a shout out piece of DLC. So all four of these DLCs, these last release ones, they're quite unique because they have a bit of a side campaign you can play on the Vortex map. So it's a bit different, and if you want a break from Mortal Empires, you can do it, but you're mostly going to be here for Mortal Empires. But still, Grom the Paunch is excellent. He has a really fun faction, and it's a good campaign. So if you're a Greenskins fan, get both of those. You won't be disappointed. For Bretonnia, if you love Bretonnia, you're in luck. If you got Mortal Empires, you have Bretonnia. Now, the Wood Elves, this one's a special one, alright? Because they're a DLC race, their DLC in Game 2 is exclusive to Game 2, but you can play with all of it on Mortal Empires. Now, do you need the Game 1 DLC if you're only playing one playthrough as Wood Elves? Probably not. go for the Game 2 DLC. This is the exception, not the rule, but I would get Twisted in the Twilight if you want to try Wood Elves and play as the Sisters of Twilight. They are head and shoulders a more developed, more fleshed out, and more enjoyable faction. But if you're a hardcore fan and you want to try out the others and Confederate, yep, go for it. Beastmen, if you want to try them out and play a few campaigns, you get most of the Lords here, but you do get Taurox if you want to spend a little bit more and get the Silence and the Fury. Last and certainly least is the Warriors of Chaos and Norsca. Now, both of these are evil factions that have not received much love, but they are getting a rework in the third game. So the 4 Chaos Gods are 4 of the base game factions in game number 3, and these two will support them, so they will get a rework, but they haven't been touched since game 1. They are not worth getting into now, and yes, they're on special now, and man, if you really want to try and get ahead of it, you can, but these kind of specials are only going to become more frequent, I think. With game 3 coming out, they're going to see just how much content there is. There will be specials coming out quite frequently. Probably bundles will start coming more frequently too. I would hold off till those. I will note that also the Wood Elves and the Beastmen used to be really bad as well, and I would have told you to avoid those, but they've been reworked. Everything does get reworked, and everything on this list will be reworked again at some point. Okay, so but I would focus on things that are purely from this side onwards. Okay, so that is what I would recommend. So just to run through that again: purchase game number 2, give these races a go. So again, Tyrion, Malekith, Lord Skrulk, or Gorok. Try them out. If you like the game, try a couple of hours maybe of each race. Work out which one you like. You might just go, man, I absolutely love the Skaven. A lot of people do. In which case, if you've got the money, I would get game number 1 and then just the Skaven DLC. That alone, that race alone will give you tons of flexibility. You can federate all the Lords into each other. Lots of fun to be had, okay? And if you can't do that, then if you're on a budget, just get the game and the DLC, the green DLC, or even just game 2 and then the DLC for game 2. But just keep in mind that when you do get Mortal Empires, it is a better map, and you can at least try all of these races. You might be really interested in playing the Empire, in which case, again, like I said, try out game 2 first and go, this is my jam, then purchase game 1, try the Empire for 15 minutes, go, yep, this is my jam as well, and then get the DLC for that. Okay, so there is a way you can try before you buy here, and I absolutely recommend it. And a lot of people, they'll get all the DLC for one race, then they'll try the other races, work out the next one you like, and go, yep, cool, and they'll double down and get the DLC for that. And overall, do I recommend this game? Yes, I do. I'm obviously a content creator, but it's got endless amounts of fun. It's super immersive. If you've played Total War and been away from the hobby for a while, highly recommend it if you're a Warhammer fan, but I absolutely recommend try before you buy. If you try it out and it's not for you, then at least it's only $20 down the drain. If you try it out and love it, man, you have a good ride ahead of you. And that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I've got a ton of guides, content, let's plays on here. Please feel free to check out the channel. This is Oven Plot Armor, and I'll see you next time.